Music, get it all. 24 hours on West Africa Democracy Radio. 94.9 FM Dakar.
WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar and 1 p.m. in Porto Novo. Good afternoon and welcome to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world at wadr.org. Here are our top stories. Reactions trail Thursday's attack on Niamey Airport as Al-Qaeda affiliate group Jenim claims responsibility.
Over the past years, the armies of the AES countries have faced growing challenges, confronting highly mobile terrorists that can strike.
AES foreign ministers meet in Bamako to deepen diplomatic cooperation. Gambian citizens protest over worsening water and power shortage. Benin's former defense minister, Candide Azanai, faces continued detention over coup plot allegations.
I remain optimistic because there is no evidence directly linking him to the allegations. Our objective is to secure a dismissal of the case.
Please stay tuned for the details of these stories and more.
On the news, this is Veronique Joy.
Glad to have you join us. Newslink takes off in Niger, a country still in shock from Thursday's attack at the Niamey International Airport, which an Al-Qaeda affiliate group has claimed responsibility for. The attack, which began at dawn and lasted for more than 2 hours, left 11 members of the security forces and 2 civilians dead, according to the Nigerian government. Authorities say security forces repelled the assault, killing 22 attackers, arresting over 20 suspects, and recovering a cache of weapons. Imo Edit reports.
The claim of the responsibility came from Jamaat Nusrat al-Islam, while Muslimin JNIM, the Al-Qaeda-linked group operating in the region. Thursday's attack marks the second major assault on the Niamey airport complex this year, following a January operation claimed by the Islamic State Sahel province. For Sahel experts, the Diori Hamani Airport remains a strategic target because it houses both a civilian terminal and a military airbase for Niger's security operations and regional military cooperation. Sources in Niamey, however, say the recent deadly assault that claimed the lives of 13 individuals, including 11 soldiers, reflects a rivalry between JNIM and ISSP, two jihadist groups competing for influence across the Sahel. The attack in Niamey also comes amid reports of coordinated assaults on military positions the day before in western Niger, including Banibangu and Inates. Despite the violence, authorities say calm has largely returned to the capital. Airport operations have resumed while security forces continue search operations around the affected areas. Niger, Mali and Burkina Faso, all members of the AES bloc, continue to fight terrorism despite continued joint military operations in recent years. Beyond the material, thousands of lives have been lost and millions of people displaced.
That was Imo Edith with that report. Let's remain on the attack on the Niamey airport a while longer. The incident marks the second attack on the country's main international airport in just a few months, raising fresh concerns about the security situation and the ability of armed groups to strike strategic installations. What is behind the repeated attacks on Niamey's airport? Here's Burkina-based security analyst Moussa Sawadogo with his analysis.
I think this reflects a shift in the way the conflict is being fought. Over the past years, the armies of the AES countries have faced growing challenges, confronting highly mobile terrorist groups that can strike, disappear, and often leave behind ambushes or improvised explosive devices. In response, the military strategy has increasingly relied on air power. Government has invested heavily in helicopters, combat aircraft, and drones, which have significantly changed the balance on the battlefield. As a result, terrorist groups appear to have adapted their tactics. They now understand that these aerial capabilities are among the most effective tools available to government in the fight against insurgency. That may explain the recent attacks on airports. These facilities serve as bases for helicopters, fighter jets, and in some cases, drones. By targeting airports, the militants are effectively trying to weaken or destroy the key military advantage enjoyed by the AES states.
That was Musa Sawadogo, a Burkinabe security analyst. Côte d'Ivoire has renewed calls for effective security cooperation with Burkina Faso, especially on joint border patrols. The appeal was made by the Ivorian Minister of Defense and Deputy Prime Minister Tene Biraima Ouattara during a visit to France. However, it appears to be insufficient to convince the Burkinabe transition president, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, who accused Abidjan of attempts to destabilize his country. To better understand why, here is an analysis by Abdullahi Hassan.
Tensions between Côte d'Ivoire and Burkina Faso remain high, with deep mistrust continuing to strain relations. Ouagadougou has previously accused Côte d'Ivoire of attempts at destabilizing its territory and serving as a rare base for terrorist allegations strongly rejected by Abidjan. Relations further deteriorated after several cross-border incidents, including the death in custody of activist Alain Christophe Traoré in Abidjan in July last year. That was preceded by a series of arrests involving soldiers on both sides in 2023 and 2024. These developments ultimately led to the suspension of joint border patrols. Despite earlier military cooperation, including an arms donation from Côte d'Ivoire to Burkina Faso, security coordination has stalled. Analysts say rebuilding trust is key to resuming cooperation against terrorist threats along the shared border. Côte d'Ivoire has deployed around 3,000 troops to secure its frontier, while extremist groups have carried out attacks in neighboring countries but have not struck Ivorian territory since 2021. Observers say restoring joint patrols could improve security and also help facilitate the return of thousands of Burkinabe refugees displaced by ongoing violence. But above all, they say the priority is rebuilding trust between Côte d'Ivoire and Burkina Faso.
That was an analysis by WADR's Abdullahi Hassan. The foreign ministers of the Confederation of Sahel States, AES, are meeting in the Malian capital, Bamako, today, Friday. The gathering follows preparatory talks held by experts from the Confederation's diplomacy pillar. Discussions are focused on strengthening diplomatic coordination among Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger, managing relations with external partners and enhancing the Confederation's influence on the international stage. Nadia Tete reports.
For 2 days, senior officials from the three countries reviewed several strategic documents under the AES 2-year roadmap. The objective is to enable the three states to speak with one voice on key diplomatic issues and to strengthen consultation mechanisms established since the creation of the Confederation. Here is head of the Burkina Faso delegation, Diemi Logo.
Our priority is to build a strong and unified diplomatic front that supports a sovereign space of security and shared prosperity. To achieve this, we must speak with one voice in our engagement with the international partners, ensuring that our strategic partnerships contribute directly to the development and well-being of our people.
Nearly 2 years after the establishment of the Alliance of Sahel States, the three countries are continuing efforts to put in place the institutional mechanisms needed for the Confederation to function effectively. The process is aimed at reinforcing a coordinated approach to security, development, and diplomacy. Ousmane Alassani is head of Niger's delegation.
This meeting of experts provides another opportunity to strengthen the gains made by our confederation, which has emerged as a sovereign geopolitical entity. Among the notable achievements are the deployment of the unified force, which has recorded significant successes on the ground, the free movement of people and goods across the confederation, and progress towards establishing the Confederation Bank of Investment and Development. These initiatives reflect our commitment to meeting the aspirations of the people of the Sahel.
For the three Central Sahel nations, the priority now is to consolidate a common diplomatic strategy capable of effectively advancing the interests of the AES with regional and international partners. Recommendations from Friday's ministerial meeting are expected to inform the next decisions of the Confederation's heads of state.
That was a report by Nadia Tete.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Let's now turn to the Gambia, where members of a group known as the Gambians Against Looted Assets, GALA, is protesting today over persistent electricity and water shortages across the country. The demonstrations began at Jimpex in the Kanifing municipality, and the protesters are proceeding to the headquarters of the National Water and Electricity Company, NAWEC, in Westfield, as public frustration mounts over recurring power outages and disruptions in water supply. The protest comes amid growing concerns about the impact of the shortages on households, businesses, and essential services. Our Banjul correspondent Sang Donald Mendy is following the protest and now provides an update.
Currently, I'm at Jimpex, to witness the protest, and we've seen a good number of citizens turning out to protest against the National Water and Electricity Company due to the lack of, due to power outages, power cuts that have been happening. So we are seeing a good number of citizens from different walks of life coming here, despite, raining here in the Gambia, but most of them have, endeavored to come to join their fellow citizens to protest against, the frequent power cuts. So basically, their message to Norway is to make sure that they try and settle things as early as possible, because as you can see, citizens are definitely frustrated. And what will interest you most, last time most of the citizens were also annoyed with the president hosting a dinner at the State House, whilst many suffering, calling for the restoration of power cuts, which has been frequently happening in the Gambia here. So I'm telling you right now, if you should talk to citizens, if you should engage them, they are frustrated about these power cuts that is happening in the Gambia here.
What can you report in terms of security situation on the ground? Because we know that Gala's protest has always been met with fierce resistance from police. What exactly can you report in terms of security situation on the ground?
Security personnel are present on the ground. The police are here to secure the protesters. Basically, you and I know that Ghana protests have always been met with violence, and basically, but for this one, I believe it is going to be a peaceful protest.
Finally, before you take a leave of us, are they presenting any petition?
Yes, they are protesting to the headquarters, NOEC, National Water and Electricity Company headquarters at Westfield. They are protesting to their campus, to their gate, yes, to vent their anger and their frustration.
All right, that was WADR's correspondent in Banjul, Sang Donald Mendy, giving us an update about what is currently happening in the Gambia. But stay tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, as we will bring you more updates regarding that and more. Now, in Benin, former minister and candidate of the opposition party, Restore Hope, Restore l'Espoir candidate, Zanai remains in detention following his hearing before the court for the repression of economic offences and terrorism. According to his lawyers, Zanai is being prosecuted on charges of conspiracy against state authorities and direct incitement of rebellion. Augustine Coley has the details.
The charges stem from investigations launched after the alleged coup attempt in December 2025. After several months in detention, Thursday's hearing marked a routine stage in the judicial process. The investigation judge is continuing inquiries to collect statements from those involved and verify evidence contained in the case file. Defense lawyer Abubakar Babarape explains,
I remain optimistic because there is no evidence directly linking him to the allegations. Our objective is to secure a dismissal of the case. For now, we will await the outcome of the investigation, as the commission still has several individuals to hear.
Following the hearing, the former minister was returned to the Akpo Mesirete Central Prison. For now, no new judicial decision has been announced. Investigations are continuing before the examining commission, which will determine the next course of action. Once this phase is completed, magistrates may either dismiss the case if the evidence is considered insufficient or refer the accused persons to the appropriate court for trial. The investigation into the alleged coup attempt of December 7, 2025 remains under the authority of Benin's Court for the Repression of Economic Offences and Terrorism, CREATE.
That was a report by Augustine Colley. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world at wadr.org. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Reactions trail Thursday's attack on Niamey Airport as Al-Qaeda affiliate group J-NIM claims responsibility. AES foreign ministers meet in Bamako to deepen diplomatic cooperation. Gambian citizens protest over worsening water and power shortages. Benin's former defense minister, Candid Azanai, faces continued detention over coup plot allegations. Still ahead in the news, we have the guest interview in sports news. Stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Thank you for staying with us. The National Economic Council, NEC, in Nigeria has approved the release of more than 83 billion naira from the Anticipatory Action Trust Fund to strengthen flood preparedness and response efforts across the country. The decision comes as authorities warn of possible flooding in several parts of the country during the 2026 rainy season, while also seeking to address challenges that limit the movement of agricultural produce and hinder access to international markets. WADR's Yechenu Sasitu reports.
The fund is expected to support early warning systems, emergency interventions, and other proactive measures designed to protect vulnerable communities before disasters occur. Governor of Cross River State, Basi Otu, says flooding continues to affect livelihoods, displace families, and disrupt economic activities, making preventive action necessary.
We know that flooding now is almost an occurring decimal. And federal government, we are very happy that they are putting some retroactive steps to make sure that the mitigation comes on in time to save the states. And of course, those states that are prone to it were mentioned.
Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, says the funding will help government agencies and states improve preparedness.
The presidential priorities include reform the economy to deliver sustained inclusive growth, strengthen national security for peace and prosperity, boost agriculture to achieve food security, as well as unlock energy and natural resources for sustainable development.
The approval comes as authorities intensify efforts to mitigate the effects of predicted flooding in several states identified as high-risk areas. Governor of Plateau State, Caleb Mutfwang, welcomes the initiative, describing it as a significant shift from the country's traditional approach to disaster management.
This is the first time as a nation that we're taking proactive steps. Most of the times we've waited till flood has done its damage before we act. But this time around, we're taking proactive steps to mitigate the possibilities of the flood.
The council says collaboration among federal, state, and local authorities will be critical to ensuring the effective deployment of the fund and protecting communities at risk. For WADR, Yechenu Sasitu in Abuja.
Liberian President Joseph Boakai has outlined a 5-pillar roadmap for implementing landmark United Nations resolutions recognizing the transatlantic slave trade as one of the history's gravest crimes against humanity. At a high-level consultative conference in Accra, Ghana's president, Boakai called for the development of a common African position on reparatory justice backed by a coordinated implementation across African countries. The recommendations could shape future international discussions on reparatory justice development cooperation, education, cultural restitution, and historical accountability. WADR's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker reports.
For Liberia, whose national history remains closely linked to the legacy of the transatlantic slave trade, the initiative underscores growing efforts to promote healing, reconciliation, and inclusive development to the recognition of historical truths. The Presidency's third recommendation centered on education, research, and historical truth-telling, urging governments and institutions to strengthen the teaching of African history, preserve historical records, and to support universities and research centers working to document the impact of slavery and its legacy.
Repairing historical wrongs requires the restitution of stolen cultural artifacts and heritage objects, together with development partnerships that address persistent inequalities rooted in slavery and its aftermath. Yet, the transatlantic slave trade, forced labor, and resource extraction generated enormous wealth that shaped the economic foundations of many societies across the world.
According to President Bouaka, Liberia's own experience demonstrates that the effects of slavery cannot be measured only through economic losses. The conference is expected to develop reconciliations on the implementation of the historic UN resolution and to strengthen international cooperation aimed at addressing the enduring legacy of the transatlantic slave trade. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest this afternoon is Musa Sawadogu, a Burkina-based security analyst. In this conversation with WADR, he provides an analysis of Thursday attack on Niamey's airport in Niger. Mr. Sawadogu began answering a key question about what could be behind the repeated attacks on Niamey's airport. Take a listen.
Je pense que cela s'explique par un changement de la...
I think this can be explained by a change in the nature of the war on the ground. For some time now, about a year, we've seen that, faced with the difficulties encountered by the military and by AES soldiers in general against highly mobile terrorist groups that appear and disappear, and which make it very difficult for regular armies to track them because often during their retreats, ambushes are set for the soldiers and explosive devices are concealed. The armed forces have developed an air war, resulting in significant investments in helicopters and drones. And indeed, the arrival of drones has somewhat altered the balance of power on the ground. So I think that based on this change, this new tactic developed by AES, the terrorists have understood that they need to attack the base of these airfields. And I think that's what could explain what we're seeing today. Because airports are where the helicopters, fighter jets, and in some cases drones are located. So I think attacking airports today is an attempt to destroy the ultimate weapon, so to speak, in the hands of our governments.
Can we say that there are security flaws given that airports are supposed to be highly monitored?
But of course, we shouldn't be fooled because capital cities are very well protected. Airports where fighter jets, helicopters and drones are located are extremely well protected. So when the enemy manages to strike there, one of two things is true. Either the security system in place is inadequate to protect the locations, and I imagine that after each attack, there are investigations to try to truly understand what happened, or perhaps there's complicity within the organization, especially since we often hear about the ramifications of terrorism in Burkina Faso. A recurring theme is the perfidy of the terrorists, who may even be able to infiltrate areas we thought were safe from their influence.
This is the second time Niamey Airport has been attacked this year. Could it be armed groups trying to isolate the country?
But I think that this is indeed it, because at the level of the military alliance between the different AES countries, there is a whole process of pooling armed forces, and the different members of the AES are committed to supporting one of the members. That is to say, one for all for one. And we know that in the event of an emergency, the airport is the gateway. So if we manage to take the airport, you will understand that in the event of difficulty, for example, if the airport is no longer operational, how could the Burkinabe allies, the Malayan allies, intervene? By road, how many days would it take to arrive? So the airport being the entry point, aiming for the airport also means perhaps wanting to cut off the emergency route in the event of a problem.
Could this new attack reduce the enthusiasm of investors and some partners who would like to do business with Niamey?
But of course, the fact that even countries are being attacked by terrorists already discouraged quite a few investors. You know, people in business, when there's no security, they think twice before coming. If there's insecurity at the airport, it's not just a military consequence. It means that even civilian flights will be suspended. And when civilian flights are suspended, there's total isolation for the countries concerned, especially since there are many entry points by land. I will take the case of Niger, for example. The border with Burkina Faso, we know there are difficulties there. The border with Benin, we know there are difficulties there. So the airport allows for an air bridge. And if the airport is no longer operational, you will understand that from that moment on, even military supplies, even the importation of weapons, ammunition, fuel, the movement of civilians, all of that is jeopardized. And if that were to happen, I think the country will be in a problem of isolation, and that will not be good.
That was Musa Sawadogu, a Burkinabe security analyst. All right, it's time for some sports news, and the World Cup is on. To give us more update about it, Sankule Janko is here with me. Sankule, the first round of fixtures for the World Cup has been completed, and Africa has mixed results. We've seen results, we've seen people draw, we've also seen two countries win. Tell us more.
Indeed, Veronique Njai, you're right. Africa's representatives, have made a mix of encouraging start to the 2026 FIFA World Cup following the completion of the opening round fixtures. Ghana secured a dramatic lead win over Panama. DR Congo on a historic draw against Portugal, while Cote d'Ivoire defeated Ecuador. Cape Verde held Spain. Egypt shared the spoils with Belgium, and South Africa picked up a valuable point against the Czech Republic. That is, of course, part of the second round of fixtures. However, Senegal suffered defeat to France, and Tunisia fell heavily to Sweden. Well, as the second round of matches continues, African teams remain firmly in contention for places in the knockout stage.
Like you said, Sankule, the second round of fixtures continues today. What should we expect?
Right. Meanwhile, tonight, Veronique, we'll see action. Co-host, that is United States, will take on Australia at 7 p.m. Well, before Scotland face Morocco in the crucial Group C encounter at 10 p.m. with both sides looking to move closer to qualification for the next round.
Looking at the Morocco game, Sankle, it seems there's a development to that.
Yes, absolutely. You're right. There is a major development to that because Morocco's World Cup preparations now have been overshadowed by a legal setback for Captain Achraf Hakimi after a French appeals court ruled that he will stand trial over a rape allegation dating back to 2023. Well, the Paris Saint-Germain defender who denies the accusation is expected to appear before a criminal court in the coming months. Well, the ruling comes just days, that is, of course, just hours now before Morocco's crucial, Group C clash against Scotland, creating an unwelcome distraction for the Atlas Lions as they focus on their World Cup campaign, trying to improve on their draw against Brazil.
All right, many thanks to Sankule Janko. As promised, West Africa Democracy Radio will keep you updated as the World Cup continues. But that's how we wrap this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Joacino Capagomis for the technical assistance. To interact with us via our social media platforms, X, Instagram, and Facebook at WADR English. I am Veronique Njai. Good afternoon.
We thank you for listening to Newslink in Nigeria on Love FM Abuja and Darling FM Owerri. In the Gambia on Hot FM Banjul, Hilltop FM and Veritas Radio in Serekunda. Thank you for listening on Alternative Youth Radio Lofa County, Liberia, Radio Kegaman in Nimba County, and DCN Radio Riverses County. A big thank you to Radio Baft FM in Sierra Leone for listening, and in Ghana we thank Radio Pad in Damango and Royals FM in Wenchi.